Eu tenho que ouvir em inglês para ficar. Tudo eu tenho que ouvir em inglês. Entendeu? Mas,
Uma hora aprende.
não, mas faz muito tempo. Eu digo, meu Deus, pelo amor. Tudo bom? Como é que você está?
Tá bem, né? Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to our Cantinho Luis. Once again, every second Monday of each month, we have our meetings in English. And tonight, not only that, but we also have running our Jorespe, which is our spiritual journey or spiritist journey of the city of Peabody, which the acronym became Jorespe. And this is our 14th edition, Jorespe number 14, as our friend Daniel Assisi advised us or told us that it would be interesting to have the number only, so we call it now Jorespe 14. So, hello, welcome. And tonight we're going to have a special person. Not that the other ones were not special, or the ones that will follow, but Flávio Zanetti, which in English would be Flávio Zanetti, right? Has been here with us for a very long time, and not only for the regular meetings, sometimes when he comes and talk to us or talk with us, he's been the only one who has been to every single Jorespe from the first one. So it's been 15 years, and he's back once again to talk to us. Sometimes he came and gave us a talk in Portuguese, sometimes in English, and tonight is going to be the English one. And he's going to talk about spirituality in focus. That's what his topic will be. But before he comes up here and talk to us, so it's right there, Spiritism in Focus, a brief overview. So people that are online, if there's anyone online, welcome as well. The ones who are not live, the ones who are later watching this, welcome as well. I'm glad that you're here, that you found us, and tonight is it's a very special night for us. So before inviting Flavio, you're going to have a brief reading from this book, Our Daily Bread, which was written by the Spirit Emmanuel and through the psychography or mediumship of Francisco Cândido Xavier, our dear Chico Xavier. And we chose the message that's entitled Look Farther Ahead, Look Beyond, Look Farther Ahead, number 72. And Emmanuel takes a small piece from the Gospel of Luke, verse number 38 of chapter 6, which is taken from the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus says, "For with the same measure with which you measure others, you yourself shall be measured." So we look at the others and we measure the others a certain level or height, then it's usually very common that we are going to be measured using the same kind of lenses. That's what Jesus is saying. And then Emmanuel makes the following comment. To the Eskimos, the sky is a continent made of ice, supported by seals. To primitive peoples in a forest, there is no paradise greater than abundant gain. To persons of sectarian religion, the glory beyond the grave belongs exclusively to them and those who are of the same mind. To the erudite, this world and the heavenly spheres that surround it are but a small corner of the universe. Transfer this observation to your own field of daily activities, and do not forget that external situations will be registered in your inner realm according to the elements of reflection harbored in your conscience. If you persevere in anger, all the energies around you will appear enraged. If you prefer sadness, you will see discouragement on every step of the road. If you doubt yourself, no one will have confidence in your efforts. If you have become accustomed to trouble and disagreement, it will be next to impossible for you to live in peace with yourself. You will live either tormented or peaceful within a lower or a higher realm where you choose to place your mind. And within the atmosphere that suits you, you will live with the spirits you call upon. If you dwell on idleness, you will experience idleness in all its tones and hues. If you involve yourself in work, you will find 1,000 different ways of being useful. The scenery that surrounds your steps will always be what you deem it to be, for with the same measure that you apply to nature, the living work of God, nature will measure you. So it is not only the world is basically a reflection of what we are, of what we want to be, and what we are striving to be. The more we stay on a good path, the more good we see in the world. The more we stay in a bad path, the more bad things we see and end up doing and being in the world. So look farther ahead. That's the message of for tonight. And as I said, I was just going to read and make a very, very brief comment. And so now we're going to do a prayer so that we can be even more focused on what we need to do tonight. And then we will invite Flavio to talk to us. And so if you want, let's close our eyes to invite Jesus to be even closer to us, asking him and his messengers that are always surrounding us to protect, to guide, to inspire our minds and our hearts of the ones who are here physically, be them incarnated or discarnated, but also to the ones who are listening to this from far away, from their homes, from their works, by watching or listening to this live or otherwise. May the blessings of Jesus fall upon us at this very moment, so that we, together, thinking on the good, thinking on the light, thinking about God, our Creator, the one that gave us life and that gives us inspiration for our lives, that we may receive from him or from her, from the Creator, a spark that can lead us to keep going, watching our lives, improving our lives, and learning more and more how to love. So Jesus, thank you for your blessings. And may your love be with us, not only now, but forever. So be it. So with this, let's invite our dear friend Flávio, which is a worker of the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Massachusetts, which is now in Malden. It's been a few years, and they have meetings on Saturday mornings. They have meetings Thursday nights, Wednesday nights, and a bunch of other meetings too, and online meetings as well. He is a few years ago, Flavio. You were part of a course on I think it was one of Leon Denis' books, right? I don't know if it's still running. If you want to say something here about it, so that people know some of the activities of your group. But welcome, my friend. I know you have a lot to talk about tonight, so thank you again for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Mac, for this warm introduction. Thank you, folks, who are following us either online or through the recorded version. It's a great pleasure to come back to this esteemed place where we've been for the 14th year, talking every month of June on diverse topics. So it's my great pleasure to come back, and my honor. I feel humbled to be invited once again, right? So to spend a few minutes with you guys. Before we start, we'd like to thank our beloved, Master Jesus, our professor, our teacher, our big brother Jesus, for allowing us to be here tonight as friends, as those who are in the same pathway together. And may his guardian angels, our guardian angels, bring peace to our hearts. May they enlighten our minds so that we can really comprehend the message with the same dedication, with the same purpose that we put in order to prepare that for you guys. So the topic tonight is Spiritism in Focus. Mac, would you mind shutting this slide off? Thank you. Spiritism in Focus. So the goal for us for the next 45, 50 or so minutes is to really go into a brief overview of what Spiritism really is. So the first question, or before we even start asking questions, I'm going to ask you to look at this picture, right? And when you look at the picture, imagine if you're a photographer, you can look, everything around the hand is blurred, right? So we can't really see much. But if we look through the lens of this camera lens, so to speak, we see a much clearer either sunset or sundown or sunrise, correct? We can see the sun, we can see the shades of the clouds, we can see the rays of the sun and everything else. So when we look at Spiritism in Focus, we like to argue, we like to say that Spiritism for us is that lens that help us really look at the world in front of us with a much more crystal perspective, as opposed to sometimes when we see things out there, everything's blurred, everything sort of makes sense, but don't make sense, but makes sense, but don't make sense. For example, you can maybe tell by this blurred picture, might be an ocean somewhere, might be sun because of the orange and yellow lights, but you can't really see where the sun is if you did not have those lenses, correct? So what we like to say is Spiritism is this lens that really brings sharpness or focus to the way we see the world. All right, let's start with this hypothesis as we progress through the topics that we brought for you guys tonight. So the first question is, what is Spiritism for you? So people may say, for me, Spiritism is this thing that I do every Monday evening. I go to the Spiritist Center. I spend some time with my friends there. We do a prayer. We do a reading, right? We talk to people. We have passes and we eat and we go home. Or maybe I go twice a week. Or maybe sometimes I go and I do some studies with like a study group, like a workshop. We talk about things. We share ideas. We share concepts. We share some, readings and all that. For other folks, for me, Spiritism is a way of life. For me, Spiritism is how I see my life through. It's the lens through which I see my life. So, in order for us to answer what Spiritism really is, I think it's important for us to do a little historical context or contextualization of how everything started, how we can really compare so some things are Spiritism, some things are not Spiritism, right? So let's start. So the first thing I wanted to bring, the topic I want to bring to you guys is spiritualism. So is there a difference between spiritualism and spiritism? Some people may say yes, others may say no. It's sort of the same thing. And some people, do you have a religion? Oh, yeah, I'm a spiritual but not religious. Is that the same thing? So what is spiritualism? Is that something that, the same as we do here? So basically, as form of a definition, spiritualism is that belief that there's something beyond matter. There's something beyond what my eyes can see. It's a chair. I know it's a chair. It's made of fabric and metal and paint and plastic, and that's it. That's a chair. This is a book. I know it's the book that was right in the beginning. I know it's a book because I can smell it. By the way, I love smelling books. I'm not sure if this is just me, my own thing, but I love reading books, picking them up and smelling it. So it's a book. It's blue. There's authors and pages. What about the things that we don't see? We can't touch. We can't sense it. We have an idea there, right? So, for example, can we see God? Is God, 55 Broadway, is he there? Is he here? Is God in my house? If I enter my house, I see God sitting on the table, sipping some coffee with me. Can I see? Probably not, or definitely not. So if you believe, or if anybody believes there's something beyond matter, that person, or us, right, are spiritualists. Meaning, if you believe there's something beyond matter, right? If you're not a materialist, meaning you only believe in what you see, you are automatically a spiritualist. So hang on a second. Are you telling me that we're all spiritualists? Yes. Because we believe in God, correct? We believe in our guardian angels, our spirit guides. We believe in mediumship. Yes, all those things that we believe, they go beyond matter. Therefore, by definition, everybody that's religious, that practices one religion, doesn't matter which one it is, that person automatically is a spiritualist because he or she believes in something beyond matter. What about some other examples? So let's go back in history a little bit, right? So the Spiritist ideas that we have knowledge about today, that are in the Gospel, Spirit's book, Medium's book, Heaven and Hell, the Genesis, and all those books that not only were written by Allan Kardec, but other authors, all those ideas, they have not started with Kardec. Kardec didn't really invent the concept of that, because if you look, for example, back into the Egyptian times, they had some rituals, practicing rituals where they had some offerings to gods, lowercase g gods, right? They had some deities that they followed their advice, their guidance. Same thing with Greek mythology, the Greek gods. Aphrodite is an example of a Greek god, right? Athens is another example of a Greek god. Roman, gods as well, lowercase g. For example, give me an example of a Roman god. Anybody has an idea? Who would be an example of a Roman god or goddess, so to speak? Go ahead, pick up your phones and search. You can do that. It's fine though. You can do that. So, any examples of Roman gods or goddesses that we have in front of us? There's several, by the way. Some cities were named after those gods. Venus, that's one, yes. Diane is another one. There's several. Some of our names, sometimes names that we give our kids, were named after some of the gods, Roman gods, for example. So the idea that we have entities, spiritual entities, talking to us, that's not something new, my friends. This has been around for many, many years. In this case, from thousands of years ago, the Romans and the Greeks, and the Egyptians, and so forth. So these Spiritist ideas that we hear or we learn and we study now, they've been with us since the ancient times. So, for example, Plato and Socrates talked about incarnation as it was a normal topic. And since they talked about incarnation, they also talked about reincarnation, which is the concept of going back here in this life to reincarnate, right? in a different body, in a different situation, in a different context. So these ideas that the soul survives our body's death, that's not something that Allan Kardec created himself. These ideas have been with us for many, many, many years. Same thing that Socrates constantly talked to an invisible friend. Constantly talked to. And if you have kids, you may or may not have seen your son or your daughter talking to an invisible friend, usually before the age of 7. They had invisible friends that they were playing with. Oh, I'm playing with my friend so-and-so. Right? My mom used to tell me that I used to have a friend. I forgot the name of my invisible friend when I was very young. Right? I have no idea who that was. But as we understand and learn through Spiritism, the child up to the age of 7 approximately, it's still in very much contact with spiritual world. And that was very possible that all of us have had invisible friends when we were very, very young. Okay? Those concepts are not new, folks. Those are not new things that Spiritism created, so to speak. But instead, they've been with us since many, many, many years ago. Fast forward to the Old Testament. Do we see that example in the Old Testament? The example of people or folks talking to deities and angels and all that? For sure. For example, if you look at Moses, he saw Jehovah, right? And started hearing voices. That's in Numbers chapter 7, verse 89. He started hearing those voices, and he made sense of those voices, and he wrote it down. Several examples. When, for example, Moses went up to receive the 10 Commandments, he didn't really create them. He received from the angel, Gabriel, in case you don't remember, he received from Gabriel, he wrote it down, and then we have an example of 10 Commandments in the Old Testament. Like that, in many, many other different places, many other places in the Old Testament, we have examples of folks talking to spiritual entities, so to speak. So, if there was in the Old Testament, can you guess, is there in the New Testament as well? Yes? Who thinks yes? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
One person. Who thinks no? Raise your hand. One person. Who's not paying attention? Raise, because we're missing some hands. There's hands missing. Come on. Can you get a different crowd here, please? Because this crowd is not participating. You need a better crowd. So, yes, absolutely. There's several examples in the New Testament that we see. And we have knowledge that, for example, Jesus talks to Elijah and Moses on the mount. He was there. He talked to Elijah and Moses, but hang on. Moses has already passed away, right? Hundreds of years ago before Jesus was here. Yeah, but he talked to Moses through Elijah on the mount, according to Mark chapter 9, verses 1 and 8. Similarly speaking, Jesus expelled the evil spirits. So he will tell Haka, move away from here. So he was expelling those evil spirits. So he can only expel something that's there, correct? So unfortunately, a lot of our friends from different, Christian religions, so to speak, they don't believe in Spiritism because there's no such thing as spirits. But hang on a second. You expel spirits. So how come you don't believe in spirits? Doesn't really make sense, right? Again, not a criticism, but just a way for us to understand that Jesus was expelling evil spirits. Therefore, they were there. They were bothering some people that do not need to be bothered, and Jesus had to come to expel them, as we learn in the New Testament. Right? Last, I wanted to mention that in the Pentecost, the disciples spoke in tongues or languages. If you remember that part of the gospel, it was an interesting one because a lot of these disciples, they had no education, they had no knowledge whatsoever in these new languages, and they were able to communicate in those languages. There are some churches still today, they have this mediumistic practice where some of their folks that attend those ceremonies, those rituals, they receive those messages or information, and they speak in tongues, as we know. So all these things are telling us there's something more than what we can see with our own bare eyes. Correct? Don't you agree? There's something more than this chair here. Maybe there's somebody sitting in front of you. Can you see that person? Can you see it?
No.
I can't either, so I can't really say yes or no. But for sure, there are a lot of spirits here with us this evening. right? Oftentimes we cannot see them, but sometimes we can sense them. We can perceive their presence. Oh, I sense something. How do we know if it's what we're perceiving or what we're feeling or sensing? It's something that's really there, or maybe it's a creation of our own hand. Allan Kardec asked the very same question to the spirits, and the answer is very simple. If the idea is something that you could have created that yourself, it might be your idea. But if it's something totally out of the ordinary, that's something that you would not be able to create or to put that together yourself, that is likely the work of another entity, another person, another spirit, so to speak, right? So several examples we see: spirits communicating, spirituality working, spiritism or spiritist ideas as we know now, thanks to the body of work that we have now through Allan Kardec. We can catalog and categorize, we can make sense of these communications, whereas in the past, it was just, oh my God, look at what's happening. Oh, look at this, look at that. It was just a phenomenon that spoke much more loudly than the place or the situation itself. So, what Spiritism really is, because up to now, we're just talking about this something called spiritual phenomena, communication with spirits and all that. But what Spiritism really is, and I'm inviting you to open your eyes, because oftentimes people say, oh, I believe in Spiritism. Do you really? What is Spiritism? And the person cannot really tell what Spiritism really is. So first, let's go with the definition, right? Spiritism, as we understand and learn from Allan Kardec, only one, because Allan Kardec created the word Spiritism. Before Allan Kardec, there was no such word called Spiritism. For example, Allan Kardec did not create the word reincarnation. No. If you look at Bhagavad Gita, the book that the Indians or the Hindus follow, 6,000 years before Christ, they talked about reincarnation already. So Allan Kardec did not create the word spirit, the word reincarnation. He created, however, the word spiritism and mediumship. Even though in some of there are past examples, mediumship was present with Moses, with Jesus and all that, it was not really understood as mediumship. We just understood, hey, Jesus was talking to God, or Moses was talking to an angel and all that. So, by definition, or as we like to define, Spiritism is this body of knowledge, as revealed by the enlightened spirits, contained in the works of Allan Kardec. Notice, it's not the work of Allan Kardec. Allan Kardec did not create Spiritism. He compiled the message from the enlightened spirits. How did he do that? He had mediums receiving messages in different parts of the world, including the United States, here in the region of Boston, the Northeast part of the United States. And those mediums were sending letters back and forth. And Kardec, what was he doing? He was comparing the messages that were received by different mediums that did not know each other. This is in the 1850s, my friends. No such thing as WhatsApp or text messages or Instagram or Facebook, no internet. So these mediums had no idea whatsoever of what each other was doing, and therefore these messages were in sync with each other. So what does he do? He compiled those messages and included in the works here in the Spirits book, Medium's book, Gospel According to Spiritism, Heaven and Hell, and Genesis, the most famous 5 books that he wrote. He did not only write those 5 books, he wrote more than 20 books, in case you're wondering. Those are the 5 major, works that he created. So that's why when people say, oh, it's Kardecicism, that's the wrong message. There's no such thing as Kardecicism, because the suffix ism is the ideology or the knowledge of Kardec. Kardecicism would have been study of Kardec's life, which is not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is studying what we have in front of us, which is this compendium of messages that came from the enlightened spirits. That's why the phrase Kardecicism is wrong. Spiritism is only one, the one that was compiled by Allan Kardec. Okay? And then the official definition is what's in the Introduction to Spiritist Philosophy. Kardec writes himself, it's the science which deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of spirits as well as the relationship with the corporeal world. So, in a nutshell, Kardec is saying Spiritism is this experimental science that really deals with spirits. That's why the name Spiritism, right? The ideology or the study of spirits, and the relationship with us in the corporeal world, as well as in the spiritual world, and the relationship. Where we come from, what are we doing here, where are we going to go next? And by the way, these are philosophical questions that have been with humanity for hundreds of years. A lot of philosophers have really embarked on a journey to answer these questions. That we, Spiritists, have the answer. Or at least, directionally, the answers in front of us. Okay? So, what is the review? What are some of the things that we learn in Spiritism? I'm going to go there. I'm going to get the lottery numbers, right? The spirits are going to tell me this, Monday lottery, Mega Millions, the number is going to be what? Is that what we learn here? No, because oftentimes, based on academic study by psychologist Daniel Gilbert, a Harvard psychologist, oftentimes the first 6 months, there's a huge boom in happiness when somebody wins a lottery. The same way that if you suffer a car accident and you become paraplegic, in the first 6 months, imagine, somebody wins a lottery, somebody becomes paraplegic. In the first 6 months, your happiness goes way up. Your sadness goes way down. But after 6 months, these curves usually encounter each other. That's academic research that Daniel Gilbert did. Does that mean that if I win the lottery, or if I become paraplegic, in 6 months, there's no difference? What? What are you talking about, Flavio? That's not what I'm talking about. That's what Dr. Gilbert, talks about in his research. That's what we learn in Spiritism as well. Because oftentimes what we believe it's the best for us might not necessarily be the best for us. That's what we learn in Spiritism. So, what does it reveal? More profound concepts with respect to God. We don't believe God is this old white man with a beard and a cane sitting in a throne. That conceptualization, or the anthropos, human form, morphic form, that idea that God is a person, we don't subscribe to that. That's the basic, distinction between what we believe in Spiritism versus what our other brothers and sisters that also follow Christ believe. They believe God is an old male, old grandpa, so to speak, with a wide beard, maybe gray beard, and a cane, sitting in a throne and playing, games with people. Flavio's going to be and continue to lose at 7 o'clock. And no, God has way better things to do than really pay attention to what we do, right? So, of course. And then the universe, what we understand and learn through Spiritism is that Earth is not the only populated planet. There are other populated planets in the universe that we know, we have records, we have, messages from the spirits and all that. Human beings, what we are as human beings, we are in this life, in this condition. This is our current incarnation. Does that mean that that's who I am? No, that's what I am right now in this incarnation. In the next incarnation, I could be something else. In this life, I'm Flavio, right? I have this body, I have this instrument, I have this hardware, so to speak. But the software, if you like computers, the software can be installed in a new hardware in a new life. This hardware gets refurbished, or maybe thrown away, and then another hardware comes up, and then I get installed in a new hardware, as an analogy, right? So we learn about that. We learn about spirits. Everyone here is a spirit. We're all incarnate spirits. The word incarnate means we are in a body of flesh, in the flesh, right? We are in this incarnation. There are also discarnates. Who are discarnates? Our guardian angels, our spirit guides, those are here with us that we cannot see. If you're a medium, you'll be able to see. If you're not, you won't be able to see. And obviously, the laws through which govern life in itself, right? Law of attraction, law of cause and effect, law of work, law of progress, law of charity, love, and all those laws. Third part of the Spirit's book, if you're interested in learning more about those laws. So, we also learn from Spiritism who we are, where we come from, where we're going to go next, which is beautiful. What is the object of our existence? What are we here to do? And what are the present and past causes of suffering? Those are all the things that we learn through Spiritism. A lot, right? Yes, a lot. Absolutely a lot. But this gives us a different focus on how we see life. For example, if I'm suffering, I'm not going to blame my parents or where I live or my country or the color of my skin. Granted, there are situations that make it worse. We understand that. The world's not perfect. We get it. We're not kind of saying that. What we learn is that the causes of our suffering are either from this life or from a previous one. That oftentimes, if you don't have that idea, it becomes very difficult to understand. I'll give you an example. Imagine if you're watching a Netflix series. Who likes Netflix? Only one person. Can we get a different crew here? Because these guys are not collab. Nobody watches Netflix? Come on, you know what Netflix is. At least you know what it is, right? It's this streaming thing that you go in and watch movies, series, and whatnot. Okay? Maybe Hulu, Amazon Prime, there's several other options. Netflix is the market leader, so to speak. So imagine if you pick up Netflix, a new series. Okay? So a new series. Could be any series. And then you never watched any episodes of that series. Then you go, let's say, year 5, episode 12. Year 5, episode 12. Then you watch that. Do you have an idea what this series is all about? No. You may have an idea if it's like a drama, or if it's like a rom-com, romantic comedy, or a chick flick. Don't say that a lot. We know at least the type of the series, correct? If it's a thriller, if it's thriller, if it's action, if it's a drama, right? A documentary, you have an idea. Then you watch that episode. That episode may have different things happening and all that. So you have some idea of who the main character is, what is he or she doing, and all that. There's some ideas. So imagine if, when you look at your lives now, our lives now, we're only looking at year 5, episode 12.
The only one.
The only one episode that we have in front of us. That's who we are. So what am I doing here? What do I have to do? What am I supposed to do? How is my life about? What I need to be doing? What I do not? Why I should not need to be doing, and all those things. So that's what we see right now. So we have an idea who we are. What are some of the causes of our suffering? What are some of the causes of our successes? What are some of the things that we've done in the past and all that? But I can guarantee you, I can assure you that none of us were with Jesus saying, yeah, Jesus, let's go. Most of us, if we were there, we were probably throwing pebbles at Jesus. Right? Let's be honest. That's why we're here. That's why we're in this life, trying to make amends with knowledge, with what Spiritism can teach us. That's why it really shows us the causes, the understanding. It really focus, right, in a way for us to see ourselves better. When I remove everybody else from the causes of my afflictions, from the cause of my suffering, nobody is the cause of my suffering. How about if I have no idea, my wife left me and this. Okay, that could be the case, but what did you do to her in a previous life? Maybe in this life, right? So oftentimes we like to blame people. Because so-and-so did this, because my father left me when I was 5, and yeah, life is hard sometimes. But instead of pointing the blame to others, we learn through Spiritism, bless you. We learn through Spiritism that this is the best life that we have. And we have to make do with the tools that we have in front of us. That's what changes. That's what really puts us apart from our brothers and sisters from different religions. Because they believe, oh, that's God. God wants you to suffer, my friend. No, it does not. God wants us to be happy. God wants us to be the best that we can be. God wants us to see us succeed, see us thrive. But oftentimes we are the ones that throw us down. We are the causes of our failures and lack of successes sometimes. That's what we learn through Spiritism. So in a nutshell, if we see from a triple aspects, right? There's a philosophical component, there's a religious component, there's a scientific component. Meaning, the science raises questions and provides answers. What happens when I do this? What happens when I don't, forgive my brother? What happens when I just leave or betray so and so? What happens when I do this? All these questions, from a philosophical perspective, I have the answers. But what are the implications and the revelation of those questions? If I do something to somebody, likely that person may do something back to me. Law of cause and effect. Okay? And then the alliance between science and religion that's yet to be seen anywhere else in the world, because those two are usually going separate ways, we have it here. We have it in Spiritism. So more specific. So there's an experimental science. Flávio, what kind of science is this? Is it an official science? No. It's not an academic science, never will it be, but it's an experimental science, per se. Why? Because if we see, right, it demonstrates experimentally the existence of the soul and its immortality through mediumship. And if you participate, if you've heard, if you've seen, if you watch a YouTube video, right? You guys know YouTube, right?
Yeah.
2023, YouTube. Just check. Netflix and YouTube. If you watch a YouTube video of a mediumship meeting, you see the spirit communicating with those that are dialoguing, they're talking to that spirit, that discarnate spirit, right? So that's why Allan Kardec, in all those messages that he collected, he leveraged mediumship to compile the works of what Spiritism really is. That's the scientific component. What about the philosophy? And I added with moral consequences, because once we start debating or talking philosophically what Spiritism can give us, we start having moral consequences. For example, I should not do this to my neighbor because not only that's not what Christ would have done, but I also feel the consequences. That's why if you work with teenagers in Spiritism, it's amazing, because one thing that I love about Spiritism is nothing's prohibited. What? Flávio, what do you mean? Nothing is prohibited in Spiritism. You want to do it? Yeah, you can do it. Go ahead and do it. However, if you do this, here are the consequences. You can do whatever we want. Here are the consequences, because we all have free will. Every single spirit that's on earth today has free will. That gives us the ability to decide what we want to do. What we learn through Spiritism is that if we do this, here's the consequence. If you plant, my grandma used to say, you guys know that, right? Grandmas, they're never wrong. If your grandma tells you to do something, you better do it, because she's definitely right. When you plant a seed of a rose and you water it, what's going to come out of it, of the earth? A rose, not a magnolia, right? You cannot expect to plant a seed of rose and a magnolia comes out. So if you forgive others, what's going to happen? Others will forgive you. If you are charitable to others, others will be charitable to you, right? And so on. So a philosophy of moral consequences is that when we talk about human problems, our doubts, our inquiries, the position like an eternal person in search of the divinity, through multiple reincarnations, all these things that a lot of philosophers have debated through hundreds of years, we learn here in Spiritism. Correct? So the origin and destiny of human beings, where we come from, what are we doing here? What are we doing in this life? What do we have to do in this life? And so forth. All those things are taught, are debated, are really covered in the overall body of knowledge that Spiritism really is. So the big difference, as I mentioned before, we don't see God as a human, but instead, question number 1 of Spirit's book, God is the supreme intelligence of the universe. Nothing is more intelligent than God. And the first cause of all things. Because if something was here or there before God, that something would have been God instead. So that's how Spiritism starts, by giving us a totally different view of what God really is. Correct? Are we good? Can we move on?
Yeah.
All right, so if you look at it as a religion, who believes Spiritism is a religion? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who believes it's not? Raise your hand. 1, 2. Oh, half and half. I love it. All right, are we ready to rumble, to fight, or to argue? Is it or it is not a religion? It is or it is not? Not? Yes? All right, so let's look at the answer. Spiritism is not a religion per se. Sorry, folks, that said yes, but it really is not, because it does not have any cults, rites, and ceremonies. So you may say, oh, when I enter a Spiritist center, there's always somebody talking. No, true, but everywhere you go, there's somebody talking, right? You don't go to a Spiritist center, and I've been to many all over the world. There's a pink, table, and there's a specific, person picture, and no, we don't come here with card decks picture. No, do we? No. And every Spiritist center that we go, it's just a bunch of people talking, studying together, getting to know more about the ideals and all that. So there's no ceremonies, no rites. But hang on a second. Don't we use Spiritism to connect us with God? That's what religion, the word says. Religare, meaning reconnect in Latin. Don't we use Spiritism to help us reconnect with our Creator? Yeah, it does. So the moral link between or among human beings towards the Creator to the living of Christ's moral teachings. So there's a moral component in Spiritism, but it is not an official religion per se, because there are no ceremonies, no rites, no rituals, no certain clothing that we have to wear. I can come here and dress in white, yellow, pink, brown. Doesn't really matter. Because what we learn is the concepts that we learn through Spiritism is what matters. That's why we're here to study. We're all here to study together, right? That's the big difference. So what about here in the United States? Let's do a little quick, overview of Spiritism in America. How about that, right? So a few years ago, back in 2009, we had the very first Spiritist symposium in Boston. It was held at Faneuil Hall, April 11th, 2009. There are some things, there are some events, there's some things that happen. There's a medical association, but I want to call out a couple of things, historically speaking, of Spiritism in the U.S. So, for example, the very first Spiritist ideas came to the U.S. in 1966 with the launch of this book here called Among Brothers of Other Lands by the Brazilian medium called Francis Xavier. And in this book, he had the first Spiritist meeting, so that we have at least records of, in North Carolina. That's one of the birthplace of Spiritism in the U.S., right? 1966. Then, by 2023, in the U.S., there are approximately 120 Spiritist centers like this one. 120 in most states. I think there's 5 or 6 states that we don't have any Spiritist centers. And, weekly meetings, symposia, local regional conferences, like, I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to go to any of the symposia, for example, here was in New Jersey a couple of years ago. There's a book publisher here, a publisher, right? There are books printed here. This is going to be the symposium from this year in Portland, Oregon. Spiritual Path to Mental Balance, which there, if you want to attend. Again, all these things that happen here in the U.S. But the world is not the U.S. only. I like some folks to believe it's the world's here, right? So if I do a little map of the world, I see some numbers. Here are the numbers of Spiritist centers throughout the world. Let's start with bottom right. Australia, about 50 or so. Southeast Asia, 1,000 Spiritist centers in Southeast Asia. Japan, 50. Japan and South Korea, 50. Europe, approximately 500. Africa, over 500. In Brazil, 15,000. In Latin America, Spanish-speaking Latin America, over 1,000. In Cuba alone, 500. In Mexico and Central America, over 300 Spiritist centers. In North America, 150 between U.S. and Canada. That's just an overview of the Spiritist centers in the world today. Anything strikes you when you see the number? So even though Spiritism started in France in 1857 with Allan Kardec compiling the messages, it really resonated a lot in Brazil. That's what we really picked up, right? We see 15,000 centers in Brazil and growing, right? So if I do a forward-facing view, what about the future? What can we expect from Spiritism in the future? Is it going to be revolutionary? Is it going to be on everybody's, desks and everybody's, nightstands? Is the Spirit's book going to be the most sold book in the U.S. or in the world? Is that what's going to happen, you think? Yes, who knows? Maybe, maybe not, right? Well, we know right now, according to what's written in the Genesis over 150 years ago, Kardec says that Spiritism, marching hand in hand with progress, will never be overthrown. Because if new discoveries demonstrate that it is in error upon a point, you modify itself in relation to it. If something that we've learned through Spiritism no longer applies, Spiritism per se will modify it and will move forward without it. For example, if you look into the Spirit's book, there are a few things there that talk about dwellings or dwells and folks dwelling. That's like a 1700s, 1800s, right? You may argue, oh, we don't have those things anymore. Yeah, but those other things that people are still dwelling and harming each other. So again, if you look at the messages that we see in the codification, so to speak, or in the first books of Spiritism, there are some things that were written based on the knowledge that was available to humankind back then, right? So some of the knowledge have, evolved, and we have other authors publishing, works, Spiritist works that really complement or supplement what we see from Allan Kardec. For example, if you look at, Spiritism contributes to all areas of knowledge, not only religious, scientific, right? Personal, psychological, psychiatrical, medical, all areas of knowledge. We have contributions from Spiritism. Human activities, what should I do? What should I not do? Right? If you remember Paul of Tarsus, they used to say, everything is granted of me, but not everything is the right thing to do for me. Right? So we learn those things, right? Offering new perspectives for humankind. Remember the original picture with the lens, trying to really focus on life or the future? That's the same thing that we heard, for example, from Thomas Jefferson in 1812. If you remember who Thomas Jefferson was, one of the founding fathers of this country, I was bold in the pursuit of knowledge, never fearing to follow truth and reason to whatever results they led. This is exactly what Allan Kardec asks in the beginning, the introduction of Spirit's book, in the Prolegomena. If you're looking for a new thing, you have to be open to it. Just be open to new findings, to a new way of seeing life, to a new way of seeing yourself. And by the way, sometimes a new way of seeing ourselves, that might be harsh. Because it's a lot easier to blame the society, the school that I attended, my parents, my work, my boss. It's all easier to have the old behaviors. What we learn from Spiritism is we are at the driver's seat of our cars. And nobody can stop us. Nobody can stop us. That's what we learn. But if something happens, what have I done? That this maybe obstacle ended up falling on my way. Or this little thing, this mountain came up on my destination, on my GPS. What happened there? That's when we use the Spiritist knowledge for us to better understand what are some of the things that we're going through in our lives. Some of the difficulties, some of the problems, some of the illnesses sometimes. When a loved one is sick close to us, that's harsh, my friends. If you've never been to a situation, that's very difficult. What do we learn through Spiritism? Never lose faith. Because that is happening for a reason. Right? And even if that individual has to go back to the spiritual world, because of whatever the reason is, we may not understand the reason right away. But we know why that's happening. Through Spiritism. Through the understanding of reincarnation. Through the understanding of our lives. Through the better understanding what we're here to do. So all these things, they help us, making us stronger to face all the adversities in front of us. Because not only do we have all these together, we have a huge number of spirits that want us to succeed. Imagine if we walk into the Gillette Stadium. Have you guys been to Gillette Stadium? Anybody been there?
Yeah.
Maybe to the Fenway Park? Any stadium, so to speak, right? So you enter the stadium and you see all those folks rooting for you. That's why the team that's playing at home has an advantage. Correct? Imagine if you are playing. You are your team. And you have thousands of people rooting for you. Go. You can do it. You can overcome this. Don't let this, derail you from your destination. Don't let these small things, this disease, this illness, this problem, these difficulties, this layoff, this, put you back or put you down. You will succeed. You will overcome this. You will. That's the people rooting for us. That's what we learn through Spiritism. So this pursuit of knowledge gives us that confidence that God never abandons us. Never. No matter where we are, what we're doing, God is always there for us. Always there for us. So that feeling is priceless, my friends. That feeling that I'm at my best right now, might be a little overweight, maybe I'm not sleeping enough. It's small things, right? I'm at my best right now. And as I am at my best, I deserve great things to happen to me. If something's not happening because I stop, I don't ask the question, why? But instead, what's the learning opportunity here, my father? I talk to God like I'm talking to my dad, I said, come on, dude, seriously? This right now? Help me out because, I'm losing patience here, right? That's how I talk to him. He's my guy, he's my dad, He knows me more than anybody else. That's how I talk to him. One-on-one, no. You can fill the blanks, right? One-on-one. That's how I talk to him. And the best time to talk to God, what is the best time to talk to God? Anytime. What is the best time? The best time. When you're about to sleep, I disagree because if you're very tired and then you're about to sleep, you start, God, please help me. You just, maybe in the morning and you're late at work and oh my God, I gotta have breakfast and God. Not necessarily. To me, it's I'm taking a shower.
I was about to say that.
I'm taking a shower because what else can I do? I am a lousy singer. I can't sing for, So if you're in the shower, what are you gonna do? You're gonna sing? I can't sing. Just talk to God. Just talk to him, Hey, here's what my day's going. Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, go for promotion here. I'm trying to do this. I'm raising my kid, but my daughter doesn't really understand me. You just talk to him like you're talking to your dad. It's your dad. It's our dad. But it's more than just our dad. He's our dad and our mom together. And who did not have a great relationship with our moms, right? Most people, right, have a biological relationship with our moms that's different than with our dads. So when we talk to them or to God, it's one-on-one. That's what we learn through Spiritism. To really demystify the idea that God, oh my God. No, he wants us to succeed. He wants us to be happy. That's what he wants us to do. And if we're not there, it's because we're not seeing that the life is out of focus from what we need to focus on. Some of the things you need to do. Some of the behaviors we got to really foster. And all those things. That's what we learn through Spiritism. So the question I have for you is, what is Spiritism for you? Is it a religion that you go in Monday night? Maybe you get some passes, you do prayer, go home, and you forget everything? That's how we did before. That's how we were, hundreds of years ago. Every Sunday morning, we go to church, we put our best clothing, a suit, women put the big long dresses, we bring the kids and all that. But at the same time, we had slaves. We beat the hell out of our kids afterwards, right? Sometimes we beat our wives. Oh, I go to church. I'm a church going. I'm a man of the Lord. Really? That's the old school religion. That's why it's not the same here. So if Spiritism is not modifying you, if Spiritism is not bringing you close to God, folks, do us a favor, stay home. You're losing time here, right? You're just wasting your time. Don't even come. Sorry, don't listen to that, please. So it really has to modify us, folks. Because once it's here, it never goes away. Then you become a spiritist 24 hours a day. Oh my God, I can't say this. Because if I say that, I'm going, right? Great story. If it's for me, tell my bees, okay? Thank you. So, great story. I was driving, it's a great story. I was driving a car a few weeks ago, and then dropping a friend at the airport, a friend that was visiting us, and my daughters were with us in a big minivan, and then somebody just cut off in front of us. And I slammed the brakes, everybody, whoa! And I was going to say, whoa! And then one of my daughters, Papa, imagine if he goes and watches one of your talks. I said, what? Yeah, yes, exactly. That's why I didn't say anything. You got it. So, but that's what we should do. That's what we should believe. Privacy is overrated, right? So they're all spirits around us. They know what we do. We can't keep secrets. That's what we learn through Spiritism. And the moment that's here, it never goes away. Because that's how we live. That's the camera lens that we live our lives with. That's the difference between what we learn and what we used to learn in different religions, right? So basically, the main takeaway for all of us to go home and enjoy the rest of our week is that Spiritism is really aimed to help humankind, all of us, right? Humankind, improve our moral and intellectual progression. That's it. And once it's there, it never goes away. Once it's there, it's planted, it's seeded, it never goes away. Because it's always constantly pushing us to be better today than what we were yesterday, to be better tomorrow than what we are today. That's the focus that Spiritism gives us every single day, twice on Sunday. Thank you very much, my friends. Hope this has been helpful. And back to our friend Mackenzie for continuing our activities. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Flávio, for, as I said, I think I wrote on somewhere where we were talking about the lectures. One of the words that I find that describes Flávio more than other words is enthusiasm. He is very enthusiastic, and then it raises us. It doesn't leave us. It raises us. So I love it. Thank you, Flávio.
Thank you.
It's so, and he is the one, as we said in the beginning, for those who are here, but he is the one that has been here for 14 years and going strong. Boston strong, right?
Jorespe strong.
Jorespe strong. We hope that every June he's available. One of the weekends, or one of the Mondays or Saturdays. We have our activities are Saturdays and Sundays. So every Saturday and every Sunday we have a public meeting and we have a special talk about a topic that we chose. This year is, as his main topic talks about, is in focus. And I love the image that he used in the beginning, showing that Spiritism brings us this different type of focus in our life. And so our main topic for Jorespe this year is in focus is Spiritist perspective on topics. Then we have challenges that Humberto spoke to us last Saturday. We had a talk about guilt on Monday with Victor, and we're going to have 4 more topics further down the road. We're going to have this next weekend, we're going to have a trio, a mother and 2 daughters. They're going to come here to talk to us, Ana, Maria, and Judith. So they're going to share, Ana and Maria are going to share the topic about science and Spiritism, and their mother is going to bring us some poetry. So it will be a nice night. So you're all invited to come next Saturday, Saturday that comes. Next Monday, we're going to have Jussara. She's going to talk about transformation. So she's going to be here next Monday. Oh, by the way, all these topics are all in Portuguese. Only this night is in English with Flávio. Then we're going to have Deborah that comes from New Jersey. She's going to talk to us about leadership. And then we're going to have the final night on a Monday night, I think on the 26th of June, that I will be here talking to you. So I'm going to disappear for a few days, then I'll come back. So that, so that those will be, we're halfway done with Jorespe, which goes so quick. At least to me, it goes so quick. But as I was saying, Flávio already knows this part. That we always like to share show our gratitude to the person that comes here to talk to us, to bring us knowledge. We share a small gift, and we're gonna invite Fabrício to come here and give the small gift to Flávio, and Adriana is gonna take a photo so that he can be charged guilty in the future.
Thank you.
That's our
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
focus for you.
It's the camera lens that showed you the beginning for you.
And Adriana asked me to say something about something, and I forgot what it was.
About this.
Oh, about the passes, yes. So, so usually we have the meeting, and then after the meeting, we have passes. But on our Jorespe, so that we can have a little more time for people, and we tend to just do a prayer that serves as the passes at the end of the meeting. And I didn't invite Flávio, but I don't know if you would feel like good to come here and do a final prayer for us.
Sure.
So that people can all share one last few minutes with you. So that we can finish our meeting with a good prayer. And then with this, passes will come through the spiritual world to all of us, okay? So, Flávio, thank you.
Dear friends, let us raise our thoughts once again to our teacher, our brother, Jesus. Let us imagine his figure, himself, walking through the door and sitting right next to us. And if we could say in one word, in one thought, in one feeling, thank you, Jesus, for this great opportunity that we've had amongst friends to really get to know a little more about Spiritism, about your teachings, about all those things that we need to do in order to move forward closer to you. Dear Jesus, a spark of your love could really embrace the world, and we're asking you to really throw your love to every part of this planet, reaching the most severe places, the furthest places that we can think of, where some of our brothers and sisters are suffering, are going through some difficulties. They may use a hug, some love, and some peace. Dear Jesus, leverage the benefactor spirits who are here right now to really touch all of those that are here tonight, including our family members, those that we love dearly, and those that we have difficulties living with. They may also reach all of our friends, our neighbors, our places of work, all of the houses of worship where your teachings are spread out. in different methods, different names, in different conditions. May all these folks at this time get embraced and hugged and loved by this great feeling that really emanates from this place right now. We also ask that you bless all of our hearts, that you give us other opportunities like this one, so that we can really put in practice what we've learned. And if we could ask one more thing, dear Jesus, take our prayer, our united prayer, to our Heavenly Creator, our Mother and Father God, in gratitude for our lives, in gratitude for everything that we've received. The good things in our eyes and the not so good things in our eyes. The obstacles, the difficulties, the illnesses that we know for sure make us better spirits. May our Father and Mother God bless and assist us into our journeys, not only now, but forever. Amen.
Amen.
Amém.